You're not a killer. I am. You got over on me, Fraulein. No one gets over on me.
You know, Den of Thieves 2, Pantera, has a good movie in it somewhere, but unfortunately it drags on for so long and relies on abject stupidity from its characters for its most major plot point that what's good about it kind of ends up taking a back seat. The movie follows Nick O'Brien, who was chasing Donnie Wilson throughout the first movie. If you've forgotten what happened in that movie, because it came out 7 years ago, or you just didn't see it, Donnie and his gang robbed the Federal Reserve. But when they did it, they specifically stole bills that were about to be destroyed after being taken out of circulation, so the Fed and the banks they robbed from didn't actually realize the money had been stolen. Pretty awesome crime, as crimes go. Because of that, Nick has been repeatedly told over the years to let it go, close the case. But when Donnie reappears in connection with a diamond heist, he gets back on the case and tracks him down in France. When he confronts Donnie in a nice hotel suite in France, rather than arresting him, he joins him as he plans to rob the World Diamond Authority, telling him he's sick of being the hunter and he wants to make some money. Of course, the movie's already been dragging along for quite a while when this happens, and much of the rest of the film's runtime, creeping up towards 2.5 hours, is dedicated not to the heist, but to the planning of the heist. Now look, I think the planning of an elaborate heist is awesome, and of course should get the bulk of the runtime of the film devoted to it. But Den of Thieves 2 also jams in a subplot with the Mafia and devotes time to a long, drawn out party scene that feigns the setup of a romantic connection between Nick and the leader of the crew, but that isn't developed at all. Like I said, there's plenty of good stuff in this film. The heist is planned out meticulously, nailing down exact times cameras are on in particular areas for them to move through the facility without being detected. The action scenes, although fairly limited, are pretty good, especially when it comes to one in a car chase. The downsides of the movie really overwhelm the positives, though. In the planning and especially the executing of the heist, Donnie really takes a backseat to Nick, who ends up being kind of the point man once it gets going. That's not bad, per se, but it loses the luster of why Nick has been so obsessed with finding Donnie, and why he's been unable to catch him, seeing as how Nick is kind of better at being a criminal than the world-class criminal is. But it's really two key areas of the film that just drag the entire production down. First is the pacing. This movie drags on for way too long for what it is. There is one storyline to follow: the planning and executing of the heist. Everything else, Nick's relationship with the rest of the crew, certain characters like a guy named Marco and Nick's law enforcement colleague, and even the Italian mafia angle of the film all just serve as distractions that draw out the runtime rather than adding meaningful elements to the story. As though Christian Gudegast, the writer and director, didn't exactly trust the audience to hold their attention to the detail orientation of the heist planning, so he felt he had to throw in little tidbits of stories to break up the monotony. But the second issue is the one that really killed the film for me, and why I can't give it a solid recommendation. It's incredibly stupid. I guess a spoiler alert should be put in here. Nick, the cop who has been obsessing over Donnie for years, trying to find him after he pulled off basically the perfect job, shows up out of nowhere after tracking him down to France right before Donnie has to do a job and says he wants to join him in being a criminal. And Donnie just lets him. And his crew just goes along with it. I legitimately thought I'd missed something during the movie, and as soon as I got out, I went on my phone to check recaps and other reviews to see if there's some explanation that I missed, but there wasn't. Donnie and his crew let Nick join them because he says he wants to, and Donnie heard that Nick had gotten fired.
Word around the LA streets is that they fired your ass. I'm broke. And I'm sick of being a hunter.
That's it. Because law enforcement agencies would never leak that an officer had just gotten fired right before they sent him undercover or anything. The only other thing they have to convince them that Nick is all in on being a bad guy is because, as Donnie says, cops don't do drugs. So because Nick does some drugs at a party, after being told that not doing the drugs would be proof that he hasn't actually gone bad, they're just cool with him. And the film, after this incredibly lazy way of sneaking Nick into his target's crew, seems to maybe want to create doubt in you that maybe Nick really does like being bad and isn't going to turn on the crew in the end and try to bring them in. But if that's what the film wants to create, it doesn't earn anything of the sort. It felt like to enjoy the majority of the film, I would have had to dumb myself down, which is insane in this kind of movie. The same people meticulously planning to rob the World Diamond Authority are also so stupid that they let a cop join them without so much as even a pinky promise. So, Den of Thieves 2, Pantera, not the start to 2025 I was hoping for, as it falls into the same category as a couple of films that ended 2024 did. A sequel that made me wish I had just stayed home and watched the original.
All right, the sauce.
What?
The sauce. I don't know. You're using too much sauce. Okay? Review's over.